I don't have to be a great golfer to go out and play with these people.
Exactly. No.
Yeah. And watch them play 3 or 4 holes. You'll feel a lot better about life.
Golf courses are the most rule-keeping place on the planet.
Welcome, everybody, to the Fairways to Fortune podcast. I'm your host, Joe Canfield, founder of CEO of FairwaysRM. I'm here with Dane. He's the co-founder of Wedge Golf Co. I'm really excited to be here and to get talking to you about how you've used golf in your life, in your career, and to get to where you're at.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. We got a lot of fun stories to cover. And Wedge Golf Co., if you aren't familiar with it, is an incredible marketing agencies. You guys are a creative agency that do a lot, specifically in golf, clients like Mizuno and Bad Birdie, Veterans Golf Association, and all kinds of different clients like that you've had a lot of pleasure to work with. I'm sure it's been a lot of fun. Who's been some of your favorite to work with so far?
I mean, we've been super lucky, super blessed. A lot of people that are willing to work with us and trust us, honestly. I mean, we started, coming right out of college. So people were really lucky we were lucky to be able to trust us pretty young and pretty early on. But that Bad Birdie relationship that we got early on was a really, really strong one for us. A lot of fun, creative content. Working with bigger brands like Mizuno has been a lot of fun. And then even some of the funner brands that we get to work on. There's one that we're diving into right now that they're pre-launch, so I can't quite talk about it. But, seeing and launching brands and doing all that kind of stuff, it's a really fun kind of creative exercise, and especially when you do it in golf.
Yeah, we'll definitely be one of the more unique guests on this podcast since golf is your work.
Yeah.
A lot of people will use it in different ways, and I know that you shared some stories with me about some of the people that you've been able to get out of the golf course with, and I'm sure you use it a lot for business development, finding clients, things like that, as well as being out there and shooting photos. I saw a picture of you the other day. You're out playing golf with Carlos Boozer, which I think is pretty incredible. There's golf is an incredible game because you get to play with people that you would never imagine having an audience with. Tell me some of those stories about some of these people that you've been able to meet through the game and share a round of golf with.
Yeah, I mean, golf, it's funny because it's really the great equalizer, right? Like, you go on the golf course and, I've played rounds with heads of VC funds. I've played rounds with people who, was actually recently played with a guy who serves my table whenever I eat at my favorite restaurant. He's worked there for years and years, and like, it's the great equalizer because the VC guy I played with was probably his 3rd round ever. And, he's really wealthy, very successful guy. On the course, not so much. The guy from this restaurant absolutely waxed us on the course. So it's just this great, equalizer of, it's a place where we can get out and really feel comfortable in a way where you're not necessarily held to the same social kind of norms that you might feel in, a boardroom, or you might feel in these different settings that you're put into. And so the golf course makes that a lot more comfortable. You mentioned the Carlos Boozer round, which I think is I grew up idolizing Carlos Boozer. I was everybody's huge jazz fan, and watching him in the playoffs, watching him play. And then kind of the way that came to be was one of my business partners. I got that round of golf through another round of golf where one of our business partners had paid to be in a scramble. Unfortunately, couldn't make the scramble. So then he called me the night before and said, "Hey, can you make this happen?" I said, skip work and go golf for a day? Sure. So made that happen, went out there and was luckily able to meet a guy named Sean Kimball, who runs a company called Nomix. Hopefully I pronounced that right. But he, getting to know him, he's a really well-connected guy. And he kind of said, "Hey, I got this guy coming into town who I work with. Is any of you guys know any great courses around here?" And I had just recently become a member over at Tuahe up in Park City. And so I said, "Oh, I have access to this course. Who do you have coming out?" And so I, offered this round before knowing who he was talking about. He said, "Oh, it's Carlos Boozer." Which of course got me really excited, being a jazz fan, being as big of a fan of Carlos as I was. But I can easily say that I was a much bigger fan after than I was before, just because, we go into this round and he showed up probably 2 or 3 hours for the rest of us, hitting the range, getting set up, getting practice.
Nice.
And then, within 5 minutes, we were exchanging numbers, we were chatting, we were hearing his backstory, talking about his kids who are working their way into the NBA. And it's just, within 5 to 10 minutes, it felt like we had been friends for years and just chatting and going. And it's something that I'm sure if we would have met at a business meeting or we might have met elsewhere, it wouldn't have been as casual.
You're the
or
kid on the
fun.
sideline of the Jazz game begging a British jersey. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was able to feel a lot different that way, where it was just kind of like, yeah, we're all here to have a good time. We're here to be friends and kind of grow throughout that. And so that was a really cool opportunity to see where, relationships built on the course could start.
That's very cool. So one of the things you mentioned was being comfortable playing golf with people like this. And that's not the case for everybody. I know for myself, I kind of had a similar experience as you, where I was fresh out of business school. I, was invited because I was the only guy that played golf in the office to go play golf with some heads of marketing for some big national companies. And I'm out there, I'm like, yeah, I know how to swing a club. I know how to play, but I don't necessarily know how to talk to these people. I'm not necessarily comfortable having high-level conversations or feel like I'm on the same playing field. And, golf's a great equalizer, but these guys still have a crazy amount of life experience. How do you approach around a golf like that? Because, Carlos Boozer, crazy NBA career. That's not something that you or I would ever experience.
For sure.
So what advice would you give somebody in that situation? They get an invite, then maybe they're not super comfortable with, okay, I'm not Dane. I'm not super comfortable talking to people. Like, I'm a pretty introverted person. And so doesn't come natural to me like it seems to with you. So what are some words of advice that you'd give to somebody that's maybe not as comfortable as you are?
I mean, I think the first thing that I would say to anybody is if you're nervous about the course and the rules and this stuff, like, that is 100% valid. It really is.
Yeah.
One of my favorite comedians, Nate Bargatze, says that golf courses are the most rule-keeping place on the planet.
Yep.
There's the tee times are not, 7:30-ish. It's 7:34. The, pace of play and all these different rules and all these different things that people set up, like, to be nervous about that, you're valid. You have a valid case there. But the thing that I think a lot of what I've realized and kind of what I try to remind myself as I'm going into these networking conversation, these different topics and, being in rooms that I have no business really being in at this point in my career, is that 99.9% of people have the right intentions, have the intentions to want to do right by you. And especially if, you're meeting them in that kind of an environment where they've taken time, golf usually happens during the work day and they've taken time out of their day, or they've kind of set up this way where their intention is not to be there to make fun of you or to, play down. The intentions are usually to get out and make the most out of those 2 or 4 hours on the course.
Yeah.
And because of that, like, they're going to want to have fun and they're going to want to get to know you. And as the more comfortable and the more kind of willing you can be to let that happen and not stand in your own way of having those conversations, the better success you're going to find. And that's where you're going to find those kind of things. Because again, at that time, and I know we use this Carlos as an example a lot here, but at that time, he was not NBA legend Carlos Boozer.
Sure.
He was trying to work on my backswing, Carlos Boozer. And that's, the same thing I was that day, probably even more so.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it was, we have level ground there. We have the same kind of stuff we're working on. I mentioned, playing with VC fund founders earlier. It's the same kind of thing. You play with these guys who are successful.
Yep.
Very few of us are just as successful on the course.
No.
And we're all looking for things to work on. We're looking at stuff there. And so, it's a great place to just chat and find some common ground and have a good time.
Yeah, I like that you brought up all the rules and being valid in that. And that's one of the things that I break down when I work with some coaching clients is, okay, let's make sure that you are following the rules and that's not something that you are worried about. So you can be more worried about what's this conversation going to be like out on the golf course.
Yeah.
But you said that you're not the greatest golfer in the world.
No.
I mean, but you are comfortable enough to go out and play with people, because that is also a barrier that I found that a lot of people have is, well, I'm not a scratch golfer. I don't want to go out and embarrass myself. And I tell people all the time, well, you don't need to be. I was out the other day doing a photo shoot, and the gal who was doing the photos with me, I've been coaching her, getting her swing worked up so she can go out and play in a lot of tournaments. And she had just spent the day before taking photos at a scramble. And she's like, there was like 4 birdies all day. And I finally realized I don't have to be a great golfer to go out and play with these people. And I think that's a huge misconception. I'm like, yeah, you want to be confident and you want to be competent and be able to get the ball on the green within, 5 or 6 shots and not have to pick up after double par every time. But tell me a little bit about how you got into the game of golf.
Yeah.
And how long you've been playing for. I know you've mentioned to me before that you have some family that's deep into the game here in Utah, Riverside Country Club and things like that. But I'm always interested in people's stories on how they actually got into golf.
Yeah, my golf kind of inception and my story within golf starts with Joe Carlson, my grandpa. Joe was a pharmaceutical salesman. and kind of early on in his career, I think learned the same thing that you preach pretty heavily, which is the networking and the sales abilities that come through the golf course. And so he, shortly after, I believe, and my timelines are probably all screwed up, but unless there's any big Joe Carlson fans out there, I think I'll be okay. But he, shortly after coming out of the military, was one of the founding members, or shortly after founding members, over at Riverside Country Club, and was a member there at least from that point forward. I think the story is that when my dad was born, that's where Joe was, and I think he finished the round, to be honest. And so when growing up, my father, we weren't members of the club, but we always went to go visit Grandpa at the club, or we always used to do stuff. And I remember very early age, my dad, he played. Obviously, he always says that Riverside was his babysitter. And when he got done with school, his dad would just drop him off at the course, and they'd go, he'd go to the card room, and my dad would go play. And that was how my dad grew up. And so growing up, my dad was similar with me, where we'd go to Hubble Creek Golf Course, hit the driving range together. It was, golf really became a strong point of how my dad and my brothers and I bonded. There's 4 boys in our family, so we had a perfect foursome. We'd go out and we'd play all the time. And so, yeah, golf just began to be a very strong hobby. It was never, obviously it's a career for me now at this point, but it was a hobby growing up. I played with my dad, played with my brothers, played on the high school team. But with all that being said, very average, like skill-wise. I never was ever the guy that, was a stick.
Right.
At one point, I think my highest I ever played on our high school team was the second, and that was because our team was not even close to sniffing state. We were pretty bad my senior year, and so it was kind of our ragtag crew. But, yeah, I mean, golf for me has brought me some of the strongest relationships.
Yeah.
Obviously, the whole point of our conversation here has a lot to do with the relationships of golf. And I think one of the best stories that I have for that actually has to do with my father-in-law.
Yeah.
When I began dating and kind of courting my wife and, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, my father-in-law, he has 2 boys, but neither of them are interested in golf. And so when I came in and, I had this interest, he got really excited, and we would go play golf all the time. And he lives down in Gunnison, Utah, near Palisade.
Okay.
So we'd play Palisade all the time together. We'd go enjoy the course. And really, that was, I don't think I would have gotten the approval as quickly or if at all as I did, had we not had the chance to go out, play golf together, and get to know each other. And, that's now still one of our favorite things to do together. And it's the same thing with my brothers, with my dad, with everybody. It's a relationship builder because, I mean, it's the same reason that guys, like sports like hunting or sports like, tennis or all these different things where you're able to, have an activity that you can share together.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is sitting, talking, kind of getting to know each other and just kind of shooting the crap. And so that's what I think is really exciting with the sport. And that's, why I've always loved playing.
Yeah. I like that you brought up the family piece with it, because I've had the same experience with my dad. Like, if I ever needed to tell him something or get advice on something, I would take him out to play golf. I remember telling him when I was going to get married, we're standing on the 7th tee box at Glendale.
Oh, wow.
Because I said, hey, Dad, let's go out and play golf. I got something we need to talk about. And that was the only place he'd ever listen to. It felt like if we were on the golf course, that's where I could get a conversation to happen. And any other time, it was always something else going on. I'm one of 5 kids, and so there was always so much attention needed. And so I was always the one that was like, hey, let's go out and play golf. Let's do that. And all of my his friends have sons my age, and so when we were 13, 14, 15 years old, we'd go out on Saturdays and we'd be up at Wasatch Mountain playing golf. And I've built a lot of really close, friendly relationships through the game as well, which I think is something that's so hard to do any other way. I mean, a little sacrilegious joke that I love to tell is the most amazing thing about Jesus was he was able to keep 12 friends well into his 30s. And I think that's so true, because it's so hard once you get older and have kids and family and things like that. But if you can have an activity like golf and call up your buddies and be like, hey, let's go out and play 9 holes, it's such a stress reliever too, because it's like, let's just go forget about life for a little bit.
Which is a little funny to say stress reliever.
But hey, and if you ever need to feel better about your golf game, something I love to do is turn on the early morning PGA Live and watch those early groups, guys that aren't in contention at all, and watch them play 3 or 4 holes. You'll feel a lot better about life. They're human. It's fun to see. That they only show the champions during the regular TV feed.
The rule that I always say when I play golf is you need to be playing just good enough that if you told someone you were having an off day, they'd believe you.
They believe.
That's what it is. I've been having an off day for 10 years.
That's right.
It's been fantastic.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I want to get a little bit into your stories. You were just down in Augusta for the Masters this year. First year you've been?
First year.
And you went down there for work. And I wanted you to tell the story, but I want to tee it up the right way. You went down to meet with a client, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And no tickets, just had a plane ticket. We're going to Augusta, just going to do this shoot. And that was the only plans you have. And it turned into something incredible for you.
Really wild. So, so the story, the kind of backstory is we have an awesome partner in Josh Payton over at the Veterans Golfers Association. Awesome organization that does some really good work with veterans. They have a competitive golf league that they host veterans for. Really great league. We've done some work with them for a few years now. And we went out to the PGA show, and while we were there, Josh turns to me in the most casual way you could and just said, "Hey, by the way, you need to be in Augusta this year." And I was like, "Yeah, could have told you that. Yeah, I've wanted that.
I wanted to go forever."
And of course, I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there. Sounds good." I just kind of blindly said yes. And then again, I was talking to him closer to the date, and he was like, "Yeah, nope, you need to be there. You need to be there. Make sure you're there. That's where everyone in the golf industry goes." And, kind of the thought behind it is at the PGA show, you have a lot of opportunities to meet people who, are buyers and sellers. But if you want to talk to more executives or decision makers, they're not on the floor of the PGA show. They're kicking their feet up at Augusta.
Yeah, they're flying in private jets.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so come time for the week, again, this could not have been more poorly planned. So this is actually a funny part of the story was I went to check in for, again, all I had was a plane ticket, and I was bunking on I was staying at the parents' house of a friend that I have out there.
Okay.
Business partner who we happen to have who works in Augusta. His parents live out there, had a spare bedroom. That's all I've got.
Couch surfing. I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go to check in for my flight the day before, find out I mixed up my dates and had missed my flight.
Uh-oh.
So I'm already a leg down. Luckily, called Delta. They figured it out.
Yeah.
Put me on the next day. Red eye. I fly out at 1 a.m. I'm, sleeping on planes, go to Atlanta, to Augusta. And really, I'm just there in Augusta and kind of saying all right, let's see. I've been told all these connections are here. Let's see who we can meet. So I start calling around and trying to kind of meet, some of our clients who might be there, try to see who might be around. And I ended up texting one of our contacts over at Vessel Golf Bags, asked them if their team was out there. And she said, "Oh, no, we're not out there, but our CEO is, Ronnie. Here's his number. Give him a call. Maybe he'll meet up with you." And I was like, "Oh, sure. Great information for you to share." So she gave me his number. I ended up giving him a call and originally we had a tee time at a course out there called Champions Retreat. And I said, "Hey, do you want to come join this tee time?" And he said, "I can't make the tee time, but I'm over on the range at the same course, actually, if you want to come meet up with me." Met him on the range, and while there, he just began, never met this guy. He knows who we are vaguely because we do stuff with the marketing team. He introduces me to the group that he's hanging out with, which is the people from Hype Golf and Jay Lindeberg.
Sure.
2 companies that we've admired from afar for a long, long time.
Right.
And so he kind of says, "Hey, meet these guys. This is the team from JL." And I'm thinking oh, this is probably just again, buyers and sellers, some of the guys. And it's no, this is your CEO, your CFO, CMO. And we start making the executive team of Jay Lindeberg.
Yeah.
Then we meet the guy of the CEO over at Hype Golf, and we're meeting them and just kind of chatting on the range. And again, nobody is there to talk business. Everyone is there. This is
they're hitting balls, having fun.
They're hitting balls. And so they're handing, some guy walks over and I've said 2 words to this group, hands me his driver, and he says, "We're doing a long drive contest. Show us what you got." So I step up, lose, come back, and then we're all laughing, joking. And then Ronnie turns to me and he goes, "Hey," and he shows me his phone and he says, "Hey, if you ever heard of this party, I want to go." And I was like, "All right, sure." So he shows me that. We go and we head over to this party, and he didn't have a car, so we just happened to, he needed us at the moment. So we gave him a ride over to this thing called the Endeavor House.
Okay.
And, Endeavor, group that owns UFC, all that kind of stuff.
Big agency, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of talent. We show up, and immediately, I've never felt more out of place in my life. There's Sports Center anchors. There's professional athletes. There's some of the guys who were playing in the Masters that week.
Wow.
The guys who did the Full Swing documentary.
Wow.
They're all hanging out in this house. There's this kind of party. There's food. There's beverage.
Yeah.
Start talking to some people in that group. And then, just kind of as the week went on and on, like more and more things just kept happening where it was just kind of snowballing to the point where, I don't know, it kind of goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, where when everyone's looking to just have as much fun as they can, they're willing to invite whoever they think can, have fun and want to have fun and be a part of that. And so kind of the culmination of this whole week, was when one of the people from Jay Lindeberg actually texted me the next day and said, hey, we're hosting a dinner party. You should come.
Yeah.
And
I'm guessing you didn't have your black tie with you.
No.
You missed your flight, so you definitely weren't dressed right. Yeah.
I had no idea what to expect with this thing. I get this text and it's just like, it's a little invite they put together. It's like, yeah, here you go. You're invited. Come out. And I'm thinking like, I think it was listed as a house party.
Sure.
So I'm thinking like, there's probably some hors d'oeuvres out, tons of people.
Yeah.
If I made the list, they must have invited everybody. When I get there, it's a intimate dinner for like 15.
Right.
2 like plated tables. And I'm like, okay, this is a little bit different than I thought.
Yeah.
I thought I could blend in a little more. So I show up, I'm wearing like a Nike pullover, and immediately they're like, go back into this back room.
We got a jacket for you back there.
They walk back there. There's this room full of just like hangers and clothing.
Nice.
And it's like, just pick yourself an outfit.
Nice.
So I got dressed to actually fit the vibe. And then as we go into it, I'm start chatting with people, and it's just like, I go out and there's a guy out there. He's just chipping. He's chipping. There's a pool. There's a little bucket in the pool that you can chip into.
Yeah.
He's chipping. So I go out there and I'm kind of egging him on. We're chatting to each other. And somebody else walks up and they're talking to him, asking him, hey, how have things been since your playing days? Sure. And I was like, oh, I don't know who I'm talking to. Crap. Which might have helped me. I might have been more confident.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know who this guy was. End up finding out it's Victor Cruz of the New York Giants.
Okay.
Million followers on Instagram. Huge name. Again, been a fan of this guy for years.
I'm in the same boat. If I ran into somebody, I'm like, you don't know who this guy is.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And then I go talk to somebody else, and I'm sitting down. There's this couple, and I'm like, oh, hey, how are you guys doing? What do you guys do? And this girl says, oh, I'm in construction. I do construction management. And, this girl, she's really well dressed, gorgeous girl. And I'm just like, oh, that's great. Like, that's really cool. And I asked the guy, and I'm like, hey, what are you up to, right? And he goes, I kind of in between jobs since the show. And I was like, I said, I apologize, like, excuse my ignorance. What show were you a part of? And he goes, oh, no, you're fine. We were on The Bachelor.
Oh,
and so it's the winner and his now fiance.
Yeah, there you go.
And
I took you as a huge Bachelor guy. I'm surprised you didn't run up to him and fanboy on him.
But again, then we ended up having this dinner when, again, there's executives of different things. There's all these different people. And it just, I think, is a perfect culmination of kind of what we're talking about here, where the game of golf was the connector between a lot of people who had a common goal.
Yeah.
Everyone there was there to, yes, represent some form of business, be some part of something, Obviously, I had a lot of conversations about what does Wedge do, who are we, and have business meetings scheduled because of it. But I had a lot more conversations about, hey, Victor, try and make that chip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or hey, we're all running around and taking photos together and all stuff like that. Was where people were looking for fun, looking for entertainment and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's no different, in Augusta than it is on your run-of-the-mill, tea time that you might schedule with a friend or with a potential business prospect where, again, guys are going to probably take time out of their day, out of their work life to go out and to have fun on the golf course.
Yeah, I think one of the themes that you hit on there was throughout that whole experience that you were having, you weren't in that room to pitch Wedge.
No.
You weren't in that room to get business. You weren't there. I mean, obviously that's a great byproduct of it. Yeah. But your main objective was, I want to go meet cool people. I'm getting invited to these people. I want to be a good guest. And being a good guest isn't walking into this room and saying, hey, I'm Dane. I can make an awesome golf video for you, and it's going to cost you. Here's an invoice, right?
Exactly.
Like, that's been one of the things that I've worked with a lot of coaching clients on is understand that the golf course isn't the form for the pitch.
No.
It's the form to get into the room to make that pitch. It's the form to understand, okay, what do I need to include? What do these people care about? What really moves the needle here? Because what somebody tells you in a conference room is going to be different than what they tell you on the golf course. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it evens the playing field. You're sitting there talking to Victor Cruz on chipping balls together. Like, that's not something that would have happened had you called his agent and been like, hey, I want a meeting with Victor. They say, no way, right?
Probably still would.
Yeah.
But I think what you're hitting on there is, when you go into a pitch in the general business sense, a business pitch or an onboarding call, or if I'm trying to sell someone on my business, or even on, hiring me in an interview, or, letting me marry their daughter,
Sure.
All these different things. The number one currency that you can gain in those conversations is trust.
Yep.
That's what you want to build. It's not, hey, I have the most accolades? Do I have the most client referrals, or have anything? Like, all those things themselves are tools and ways to get you gained trust.
Yep.
So that when you go to the end of the day and you hand that invoice, or you say, here's the cost, or here's what it's going to cost to do business with me, or here, especially with something as crazy as the cost of business is letting me marry and take care of your daughter for the rest of her life, right? You got to have banked up a lot of trust.
Yep.
And that's where the golf course plays such a great role in building that trust, and honestly breaking down barriers. And that's why when you have people who might be afraid if they're not good at golf or they're not able to play well, better.
Right. If
you're going to break down so many more barriers, if I steps up to the first tee and I whiff the ball twice, they're not intimidated by you anymore, and you better not be intimidated by them when they laugh at you.
It's a good form to show people that you're willing to make mistakes and to own a mistake, right? Like, and then, one of the beautiful things too is you have all these rules, and you have people that will, I like to use the term pencil whipping, everybody's played in a scramble where somebody comes in at like 52 and the next closest person is, 10 strokes behind them. And, they sat in the clubhouse and then changed a few scores so they knew that they'd win the, $50 prize or whatever it was. And watching how somebody reacts when they hit a bad shot will tell you more about them than any other thing, I think, in life, because it will show you just, okay, how do I react naturally to a poor situation? And I'm sure you've had some experiences like this on the golf course. I know I've played with people that I never want to talk to ever again after a round of golf. And it's because of the way that they act, right?
Yeah.
And they make it so it's not fun to be around. So what are some of those things that you've seen people do on a golf course that are like, okay, I don't necessarily want to experience this ever again?
Yeah. Honestly, it's taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
Very few times in my life have I been on the course in a competitive aspect. Very few times.
Yeah.
Most often I'm out there for meetings, for fun, for having those kind of conversations. I'm not there to communicate or to be competitive with them. I'm trying to challenge them.
Yeah.
What I'm there to do is to have a day, to have fun. And the only person I'm competing against is myself.
Sure.
And so don't let my competition with myself and trying to do my best ruin everyone else's day.
Yeah.
If I start slamming clubs, if I start, cussing myself out, or, a lot of what I see most often, big blow-ups like that are pretty rare.
Yeah.
What I'll see more often is guys go quiet.
Yep. They go quiet. They sit and they kind of stew in their own head.
Go a little mopey. And again, it's not that, what you've done is you've closed yourself off from the group at that point.
Yep.
You're no longer allowing yourself to, be a part of the conversation, tell jokes, do all this stuff. And that's what everyone wants you there for, is to have fun. And so, I had an experience this last week where we went out and played. It was a kind of a hybrid content shooting day, let's actually play some golf and have some fun. I don't know if I've been closer to quitting the game in my life than I was in the middle of this round. And it was so bad that after, Tanner, my business partner, it was one of his mutual friends we were playing with, called him and said, I've played with Dane before. I know he's okay. This was not his day. It was not his day. And so I kind of got to that point where it was like, okay, everyone kind of is here because I brought them here.
Sure.
They're here for a wedge product. Yeah, part of a wedge shoot and a wedge round of golf.
Right.
And so if I was in that moment to shut down and to disappear and stuff like that, it would have ruined everybody's experience. Yeah. And so, my knee-jerk reaction is to go the opposite direction and start making fun of myself publicly.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, self-deprecation.
Self-deprecation is always my way to go. Exactly. But that way, allowed my misery to become everyone else's fun and pleasure, and we're making fun. And, gets to the point where then when I had a bad shot, other guys joined in and they were like, making fun of me as well. And luckily I got tough skin and we can take it. But it was, that made that round enjoyable and fun, where it easily could have spiraled because only did I play bad.
There's a big difference between being the host and being a guest.
Yeah.
And it is, you just touched on it too. It's like, you're the host, you need to make sure things are going right. I kind of had a similar situation with you that you just described last week. I was doing a content shoot and had a bunch of people out on the course. There were 6 of us out playing. I'm not playing well because there's so many other things going on. And you talked about, I don't play a lot of competitive golf. I have played some competitive golf, and tournament golf is a completely different animal.
Right.
Like it's almost like I need a sports psychologist on the course with me just for tournament golf, because it is so mentally taxing. And there were, it was a couple of pro players, Jason Day and Jordan Spieth, recently came out about it and were like, look, like tournament golf and being a professional golfer and trying to play our best every single round, it's mentally taxing. And when you see guys like Spieth, who came out and he had such an incredible run at the beginning of his career, he's 1 win away from a Grand Slam at 23 years old. And since then, he hasn't been that great of a player. And he finally was like, look, like it is so mentally challenging out here. And that's another reason why I love watching the early morning PGA stuff, because it's like these guys are just humans out there playing golf, and they make mental mistakes. They hit balls where they shouldn't and do things like that. But I think you hit on it with being a host of how do you stay in the right headspace while you're out there to make sure that everybody is having a great time and want to come back and do it again, or they want to get in that room with you afterwards to talk about and that's where the deal's going to get done. Like, how do you keep yourself mentally in a spot where you're able to continue that conversation after the round?
Exactly. And I think the mental shift that needs to be had for a lot of people, again, because 90% of us, 99% of us are not regularly playing competitively. Yeah. Even if you're playing in scrambles, those aren't competitive. No. And if you think they are, you're the problem.
How much licorice rope are you playing?
Exactly. No, you're not out there to compete. The game of golf is the vehicle. The goal is the time, the relationships, the fun, all that kind of stuff. And that's why even if you're playing by yourself, when I play by myself, again, I'm out there playing against myself, trying to be better at golf. Obviously, like, I'm not saying go out there and just, shoot a 150.
Yeah.
Like, still trying to be competitive, still trying to have fun. But, like, when I play by myself, I try and think, like, no, this is alone time. This is time for me to, like, be introspective and, like, think about myself and have these kind of, like, it's the relationship that I have with my internal self and the way I talk to myself and all those kind of things. And then when I play with my brothers, that's my opportunity to talk and to get to know them better and find out what's going on in their life. Like, if it was not for the game of golf, I would know very little about what's going on in their lives. Very little.
Right.
But, how caught up I am with my brothers is directly correlated to the last time we played golf.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the thing, is just the game is the vehicle. It's just a thing that gets us all in the same place.
Yeah. No, I love that.
The actual goal there is the relationships, the time, the fun. And that's, just what we're after.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate that. That's great insight to have for people. Well, we're got about 5 minutes to wrap up here. And I want to ask you about your advice to anybody who's trying to get into the game of golf. We've obviously hit on a lot of the reasons why you should.
Right.
You should be taking people out. But what about somebody who's never played? They didn't have, a childhood like you and I did with family that's way into the game. I mean, my uncle was the assistant pro at the Salt Lake Country Club for about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa was way into the game and got people into the game. My dad was into it. I would always go out and play when I was little. But what about someone who's maybe never stepped foot on a golf course? What type of advice could you give them?
I don't know. I think my advice would really just be that don't take it as seriously as you think you need to.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard to say because when you look at golfers, we take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
We take this game too seriously. We're too annoying about it. We're too nitpicky about it. And again, you're valid in that concern.
Yeah.
But know that that's our problem, not your problem.
Yeah.
Your problem is get on a course, go out and have fun and just enjoy it. Because, when I'm able to go out there, I take my wife out there all the time who, she doesn't even want to swing a club, but she wants to ride around in the cart and have that time together. And I guess maybe that's the advice there is if you want to get into the game, find somebody you can share that time with.
Yeah.
And even if that means just signing up for a solo tee time at a club and getting paired with someone random, I've made great connections and great friends that way.
I've heard that from a lot of people. So funny story real quick is when I got engaged to my wife, my dad came home one day with a set of clubs for her. And she's an athlete. She played soccer up at the university. And so athleticism translates into golf. But she was like, why is your dad buying me a set of golf clubs? I'm like, this is the cheapest marriage therapist we could possibly get. And now that we have 3 kids, and if we ever find the time to go play 9 holes together, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
We love spending that time together. So it's not just business that happens on the golf course. No. There's those personal relationships as well. And those are so important.
So it's just, again, that'd be the advice is just find what your motivation is in playing the game.
Yeah.
And again, I would highly recommend that motivation be relationships, be friends, be time. And then let golf be that vehicle. And if you guys all go out there and you shoot 130, you shot it together.
You had fun together.
And you had it together. If y'all shoot 72, you also had fun doing that together. And please invite me and teach me how.
Yeah, right. Let me learn how to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can help you out there. I'll just swing a little bit.
Okay, cool.
It's harder than ever to get a tee time. There's 515 million rounds of golf played in the U.S. last year.
Incredible.
But there's all of these new things that have popped up with Golf Simulator Lounge.
Mm-hmm.
When I started playing golf, if you wanted access to technology like TrackMan, you needed to be a pro or have all kinds of money that I obviously didn't have growing up. But now that's so accessible, and you guys are partnered with Scratch Golf Lab. And those are places where you can go in and there isn't the intimidation factor of golf etiquette because you're in a room, you're in a bay, you're hanging out and learning the game. I teach out of a simulator bay as well, and there's not a better way to get into the game than what those can give to you.
And here's a plug that I can make.
Yeah.
Right now we're doing a thing at Scratch because we've noticed the same thing where people want to get in, but there's an intimidation factor.
Right.
These simulators are a great barrier to that because you have nobody behind you. You have nobody else, you can embarrass yourself in front of. But this summer we're doing summer camps.
Yeah.
Adult summer camp.
Nice. Love it.
So that you can come in and we have 3 levels, beginner, intermediate, or experienced, expert. And you kind of say, hey, I'm a beginner. Come in and guess what? You're around only other beginners.
That's awesome.
And you're going to have small groups of 4 or 5, learn the game over 3 days. Really excited to kind of kick that off. So if anybody listening is interested, we'd love to have them out for these summer camps because it's a great chance to
That's such a cool thing to break down that barrier. I dive into the numbers and the golf participation numbers, and it was something like 60 million people played golf last year, and about 40 million of that was off-course golf, so top golf in the simulator bays. And of those 40 million, it was like 70% of them said, I want to get into on-course golf.
Yeah.
And there is that jump to get into it, but you guys are breaking down the barrier with Scratch Golf Lab. There's Top Golf as a way to get into it, to understand, okay, I got to swing. And, golf's a game that is all about repetition. I work with people, and after about 3 or 4 lessons, there's not a whole lot more I can do with them than just make sure that they're following the right things that we've talked about, right? And give them maybe some drills to do. But the way that they end up getting better is playing a lot. They get out on the course, they're playing a ton. I noticed that in my own golf game. I went out and played 9 holes this morning, and it was like the first 9 holes I played in like 4 weeks. I shot like a 50.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was not good at all, but I know that I could probably play that same course like 2 or 3 under par if I was playing really well. But that's only if I'm playing consistently, right? So that's really the key. But getting into the game is so approachable, so easy now. There's so many different people that are trying to make it approachable. You guys are doing that with a lot of your stuff. Before we go, I want to hear a little bit about what's next for Wedge, and maybe some exciting projects that you have coming up.
Yeah. Over at Wedge, we're full steam ahead right now, working on a lot of new stuff. Really working heavily on creating some new unique tournament experiences. The 2 biggest events that we're working on right now are the Long Day Challenge which of course happens every year on right around the summer solstice here in Utah. And then the other one that we're hosting is actually a national tournament that we're building at this year. Can't quite share all the details of it, but it's going to go live here soon. And it features 50 different courses in the U.S. all on the same day.
Wow.
And kind of a cool tournament structure that all ends up at Liberty National.
Nice.
So it's a really cool little bit tournament there that we're working on. And other than that, we're just kind of servicing our clients, doing a lot of consulting, content creation, different things on that end, and of course have our own podcast over at the Wedgies. So
yeah, we're proud to be a part of that network. So we're excited to be
the Wedge Podcast Network. It's growing, and we're lucky to have you. Honestly, we think that obviously we've got a business relationship, but what you're building and what you're trying to do for the game and for people's ability to get out in the network is a really cool cause. It's a really cool thing that we love to be a part of, and hope we can share that message a little bit more through the podcast.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Dane. Thanks for your time. And if anybody's interested in what I'm doing, it's at FairwaysRM.com. Dane's fixing the website right now. It's gonna be looking good here in about a week. So excited for that. But Dane, seriously, thank you for your time. We've never had a conversation like this before, and so it's been awesome to get to know you a little bit more and hear more about your background in golf. And look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
Appreciate it.